In the UK, Rishi Sunak has won the contest to be leader of the Britain's governing Conservative Party and the next Prime Minister. He'll be the first person of color ever to hold the post at 42. He'll be the youngest Prime Minister in more than 200 years. Mr. Sunak's rival Boris Johnson and Penny Mordaunt both withdrew from the race after failing to secure much support as the former finance minister amongst Conservative MPs. Mr. Sunak faces a daunting in-tray. He'll have to tackle the highest inflation in 40 years and restore confidence in government's economic policies after the brief but chaotic tenure of his predecessor, Liz Truss.
Good afternoon. As returning officer in the leadership election, I can confirm that we have received one valid nomination. Rishi Sunak is therefore elected as leader of the Conservative Party. You may wish to know the new leader of the party will address us in this room at 2:30. Thank you. Good afternoon. As returning officer in the leadership election, I can confirm that we have received.
That's Graham Brady there, the chair of the National Institute Committee. To give us more updates on this story, Rise Chief Correspondent John Cookson joins us now from London. Great to have you, John. Pleasure to have you this morning. Finally, is the UK ready for Rishi?
Good morning, guys. Great to be on the morning show. Look, he's all we've got at the moment, frankly. The economy is in a mess. He's the third Prime Minister in 3 months after some turbulent times here in the United Kingdom. So let's hope this 42-year-old man, former banker at Goldman Sachs, a rich individual in his own right. He's married to a billionairess whose father runs a tech giant in India. Certainly, as far as banking credentials are concerned and finance, he's got it in spades. Now, whether he can connect with the ordinary man at a general election, whenever that might be, is open to question at the present time. However, he seems to be the right man for the job right now, given the state of the British economy, with inflation at 10% and rising, cost of living crisis, and also the war in Ukraine to contend with, and a difficult winter ahead. So, the jury's out. I wish him the best of luck. He made rather a wooden speech, I thought, yesterday outside the Conservative Party headquarters, and he'll get another chance today to try to win the nation's hearts, because when Liz Truss has her final cabinet meeting at 9 o'clock, she will then leave Downing Street and tender her resignation to the King at Buckingham Palace, and Rishi Sunak then meets with King Charles, and King Charles will ask him to form a government. Then, at around 11:35 London time, Nigeria time too, Rishi Sunak will address the nation from Downing Street. So we'll have to wait and see what his policies are likely to be. But as I say, he needs to do a little bit better than he did yesterday in terms of presentation. He just did. He seemed like an automaton, but maybe he'll get some training overnight and address the nation in a way that will appeal to the common man and woman on the street.
Well, yesterday, Rishi Sunak told members of the Conservative Party, we must unite or die. Will he be able to rally the party behind him, considering the fact that both in Westminster and Scotland, there are persons who seem not to be too pleased that what happened is really a coronation. And there are calls for early election, for general election.
Yeah, let's deal with the general election first of all, because we've discussed this on the morning show before. It's not in the gift of the opposition parties to call a general election. That's down to the Prime Minister, and he's already ruled it out. And for good reason, because all the polls suggest that the Conservatives were involved in the general election, they'd lose royally to a landslide to Labour. But let's push that to one side, because also I would add that I don't think the opposition actually want an election at the present time, because the economy is in such a mess. Better let the Tories sort it out. On the question of can he unite the party, we'll get a fair idea of that when he announces his cabinet posts a little later today. Now, he mustn't make the same mistake as Liz Truss, who appointed all her pals and all her mates to high office, and all her enemies were on the outside sniping away. And as you guys know, the policy of life is keep your friends close, but keep your enemies even closer. And that's a good rule for politics too. So he'll need to embrace all aspects of the party, right, left, and centre, and to bring them into a cabinet of national unity, as it were. The top posts, I think, will go something like this: the Chancellor of the Exchequer, Finance Minister Jeremy Hunt, only recently appointed by Liz Truss, and is working on a budget due to release on Monday, although that might be delayed. I think he'll stay in his position. Penny Mordaunt, who of course was one of the leadership contenders, may well become Foreign Secretary. And we don't know yet as to who will be Home Secretary. That's Interior Minister in other setups. Grant Shapps is currently that. Suella Braverman, who was Home Secretary and resigned in a screaming match in Downing Street recently, could well come back as Justice Minister. And there may be a post for Dominic Raab, former Deputy Prime Minister and Justice Minister. But those are the names that are being touted around and talked about at the moment. But the full cabinet, we'll have to wait and see. But Sunak simply must bring people in from all sides of the party for a cabinet of unity.
All right, so let's continue in the spirit of Mario Puzo's quote from The Godfather, keeping friends close and enemies closer. He also talks about friendship and making friends being the biggest talent. How will he make friends with a very divided party? Because you still saw the division there yesterday, even in the Conservative Party, despite the fact that they tried to align ranks. That's one. Number two, Melvin King was saying the realistic thing is that they'll have to raise taxes in the UK. So, how will a Rishi Sunak selling tax raises in the UK at a time like this, at an economy like this, vis-a-vis looking at that OBR coming in on the 31st of October? And I should say to Rishi Sunak, happy Diwali, because he became Prime Minister on Diwali Day.
Yes, I think he marked Diwali by placing candles on the steps of number 11 Downing Street earlier this week. But as far as the economy goes, what you mustn't do is make the same mistake as Liz Truss. Liz Truss was faced with extreme pressure from the British people some weeks ago, faced with massive rising fuel costs, some families having to pay something in the region of the equivalent of $6,000 a year for gas and electricity. She proposed this kind of free market, free for all, with no funding for tax cuts, and the markets took fright, and the pound dived, and we know what the rest of the story is. He has to somehow find a way of keeping the city happy, keeping the financial markets happy, and also politically surviving by bringing in substantial cuts in public spending and raising taxes too. Now, we've already been alerted that this is going to happen. It won't be all down to Sunak. Jeremy Hunt has the difficult job of selling this new world to the British people when we hear the budget on Monday. But for sure, some taxes are going to rise. Personal, and we know corporation tax is going to be at least 25%. Sunak has talked in the past, as far as heating bills go, of knocking off 5% VAT on domestic bills, which will help people generally. But it's a fine line that they have to draw here. And politically, it could frankly go either way. It's a very tense time for the Chancellor and people in the Treasury with Sunak, though, having a knowledge. I mean, he was Chancellor of the Exchequer. He obviously has financial skills, but he's going to need supreme political skills to sell it to the British people. But you're right; it's a very, very difficult period ahead. But again, you know, the British people have been alerted that hard times lay ahead.
In the various reports, much has been made out of Rishi Sunak's profile. The fact that he's the first British Asian, the fact that he's a Hindu, the fact that he's the youngest prime minister in modern times at 42. How significant is any of these details?
Oh, it's hugely significant. Tony Blair was 43, but you're right, he's the youngest prime minister in 200 years at age 42. And he comes from an ethnic background. His father was born in Kenya, his mother in what was then Tanganyika, now Tanzania. They came to the UK and set up a business in Southampton, in southern England, a pharmacy. And that's where Rishi Sunak was born and was brought up. He had a brain on his shoulders. He got himself into Oxford and then onto Goldman Sachs. So, I mean, you know, Asian people in this country have an extraordinary work ethic and generally speaking, extremely ambitious. And it's a success story. I mean, Rishi Sunak's story is really amazing. It's also amazing, I would say, that we have a prime minister from a Hindu background. I mean, absolutely groundbreaking, and Labour, for all its political correctness and virtue signalling, haven't even produced a female leader yet, or let alone a female prime minister, and the Brits have had 3 so far. So it is an extraordinary development in British politics. The first Hindu. And going back in time, Benjamin Disraeli was Jewish, but this is the first non-Christian prime minister in British history.
Real quickly, another point of controversy has been the windfall tax. He has supported that the big guys should keep their windfall taxes. How will he be able to wriggle through that conversation now?
Well, the argument for not having a windfall tax is that it will discourage investment in the United Kingdom and especially by some of the big power giants. And it is a difficult issue. Sunak is unlikely to bring in the windfall tax, even though it would appease some elements of public opinion. But I think balancing the two, getting the disapproval of the British people balanced against massive income into the UK, so companies don't expect to have windfall tax. I think on balance, to someone like Sunak, he will not introduce a windfall tax on that basis, because it just discourages investment for the future, and it's also uncertainty that generates for the big corporations.
Well, thank you very much, John Cookson. Thank you very much indeed.
All right, thank you. President Muhammad Buhari is about to bequeath to Nigerians one of the best legacies as National Population Commission. MPC has concluded plans to hold next census in April 2023, and that will make it 17 years after the last census held in 2006. Nigerians, and indeed the world, may have given Buhari the rightful claim that he deserves, but since he's given the approval to MPC to conduct the census, the news has been shared across the nation and within the global business and development community. According to development expert Mr. Ken Ugwechi, who said that the outcome will provide the incoming government, no matter the political party, the relevant database to work with. A lot to talk about the census, Dr. Patti.
Well, I think this is, a heartwarming development. one of the major problems we've had with the development process in Nigeria has been planning without data. And when you plan without data, you are bound to make, mistakes. But now, this has been described as, probably the best legacy for national planning that President Muhammadu Buhari can leave behind. And, it's good that the government has approved the proposal by the National Population Commission. I may well go ahead with the conduct of the census in April 2023. Now, that will make it 17 years since the last census was conducted, which was in 2006. Before then, we had another census in 1991. Before then, there was census in 1973. Before then, we had the 1962 census. Before then, we had the 1953 census. And of course, that was the first major, population census. The first census in Nigeria, or in what was then Nigeria, having been conducted in 1866. But what is important, if you look at the trajectory, is that we've not been very consistent in meeting the benchmark that census should be conducted every 10 years. We tend to fail. So now, 17 years, we've not conducted census. Now, next year, this administration is talking about it. And it's summoning the will, the courage to go ahead with it. And I think that's something that should be encouraged. Because what we've been working on has been estimates. People say Nigeria has a population of 216 million. Some people say 250 million will be our population by the year 2050. And all of these are just estimates. Now that a new government is coming in, it would be a good idea for us as Nigerians to know exactly how many we are, for purposes of planning, for purposes of development, for purposes of, just giving the demographers and the policy wonks, good data with which they can plan. And the argument that some people will probably put up will be that April 2023 is too close to the handover date. Well, I don't think that should be a problem, because it's better late than never. And what we just need to do is to look at examples in other countries, like Ghana, like Singapore, like South Africa, where census is conducted, every 10 years, or countries like Canada, which even conduct that census every 5 years. India, which is even a far more populous country, has been very consistent in conducting, census. So there are lessons that we can learn from other jurisdictions. We have the demographers, the statisticians. We have, people who have the capacity. We just need to deploy technology effectively. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. We just need to, deploy technology, mobilize the people to be part of that exercise. And the outcome of it, as I said, is that we can move away from this, planning without data and, this trend of development without planning. And if the Buhari administration is able to pull that off, I think that it will be another major contribution by that administration, along with, the reforms that we have seen in the banking sector, with the Electoral Act, the, signing into law of the Disabilities Commission Bill, and quite a number of other things that this administration can legitimately point to at the level of policy.
Like you said, Dr. Bati, I think this is a good one for President Muhammadu Buhari's administration, and it makes him score high because we need data. Like I always say, after God, the rest is data. In God, I trust, the rest is data. And it's true, because when you extrapolate the data, you'd see that the trajectory of development in Nigeria can only be tracked by data, and this data can be used for a lot, for planning, for developmental planning, and apart from that, for purposeful leadership and accountability. Accountability in terms of deployment of resource. We've been very shaky as regards census. Since the one in the 70s, we had another one and it came down to 93. We've not always achieved that 10-year mark to having census. We have a census in 93 that gave us the 88.6 million figure. And since 93, it took us 2006 again. That's about 13 years before we had the next census. And from 2006, it's not another 17-year threshold. And that's why I say it's bang on, right on point, time to have this census. And we must be able to use the data to help our country. And for people saying it's coming in April, that's the best time to start. I mean, I think that's even the best gift that President Muhammadu Buhari's administration can give to the next administration in terms of data to work with. Because how do you effectively deploy resources to every local government? How do we even know how many people are there in each local government? And the kind of resource, the kind of hospitals they'll need if you don't have census. How would you be able to get the data? And also, you see, this census is also good for national security. We have people coming through our border and everything, people undocumented and the likes. So we even know people that are within our borders and be able to count them and make, adequate plans for them and be able to, put security architecture in place. Now there's a security alert. We're already having police drills and all of that. But if we had census numbers with us, then we can do a whole lot more. And I'm also excited about the possibility that we will not also just be using companies from abroad, but we're using Nigerian companies, to be able to help with provision of value chain across the board as regards mapping and the data sampling. I mean, there are companies that have led the way, like Zynox Computers and this, that have done some work in the past, as regards elections and all of that. So when you look at it critically, as regards the talk on insecurity, we even need a census to be able to know the people we have within our border, to be able to know within how we can plan for these people. And those that are not here to serve our interests, we know how to weed them out. So it's going to evolve a lot. And that's why, please, present yourself to the enumerators when they come, because they'll come. They'll come, they'll take your data. Be accommodative, because we've seen the case of which some people say, no, you have to pay me before I get counted. No, it's for your own good. Go out there, talk to them when they start to hit your doors, give them the information, don't lie to them, and let this process go smoothly. I'm also excited about the fact that Nigerian tech too will be there to power it. Like I said before, this is the best gift to any administration. The Nigerian police force has started the commencement of counter-terrorism incident simulation exercise, codenamed Operation Dakin Kagawa, to equip its men and necessary training in the event of any attack. Reacting to the U.S. Embassy in Abuja security advisory on the increased terror alert, Force Public Relations Officer Olumuyiwa Adejobi said Inspector General of Police Usman Wankali Baba has ordered police commanders in the nation's capital to re-strategize security management within their jurisdiction. He added that the force headquarters will continually avail them with required support to provide safety to all and in Nigeria, and assured FCT residents to go about their daily activities without fear.
In furtherance of his zeal and strategies to decimate activities of non-state actors and other criminal elements in the Federal Capital Territory and other parts of the country, and to analyze and de-escalate threats gathered from various intelligence at the force disposal, U.S. advisory inclusive. The Inspector General of Police has announced the immediate commencement of a counter-terrorism incident simulation exercise, codenamed Operation Dakin Gagawa. The exercise will involve diversion of traffic, use of blank ammunition, and other operational manpower and assets, and is designed to improve interoperability and synergy between different units and formations of the Nigerian police force in response to terrorist incidents and other violent crimes.
Dr. Batsi, your take on this?
Well, I guess this Operation Dakin Dagawa, it's against the background of the security alerts raised by the U.S. mission in Nigeria and the British High Commission, noting that parts of Abuja, the Federal Capital Territory, could, have security challenges. And the security alert that was issued indicated that government facilities, markets, places of religious worship, may not be safe as we move towards the general elections next year. And then, of course, that has, generated even concern among political parties. Some of the political parties have said, well, that notwithstanding, they are not going to stop their campaigns. They will go ahead with the campaigns, but that the police has a responsibility to beef up security, to make sure that rallies go on without any incident, and to also make sure that everyone is safe, be they politicians or supporters of politicians or ordinary citizens. And so what the Nigeria Police Force is doing now will seem to reassure not just Nigerians, but also those, foreign nations that have expressed concern. And of course, counter-terrorism operations by the various security agencies should not just be a one-off exercise. It ought to be, a continuous exercise to make sure that people are not at risk and that the current process, the political process, is not in any way derailed or adversely affected by the threat of violence or insecurity. And we hope that the Nigerian police, while it's on these counter-terrorism operations, will also make the best use of, areas of collaboration with other security agencies in terms of the sharing of intelligence, in terms of providing backup, and in terms of making sure that the objectives are met.
I mean, very well said, Dr. Abati. Security is a big deal. Since the Americans released that report, everybody has been moving up and down. In fact, I'm beginning to hear that some schools were closed. There's been a lot of agitation. And that's why during this period, this electoral period, we need to take security seriously. We need to look at those simulated drills once again. We need to get all our security architecture in place, and we need to have conversations. And we also need to deploy technology. I was at a forum yesterday organized by Town Talk, a data company, and Amarante, an international company, and they posited various scenarios, for the Nigerian elections, likelihood of violence, and what should be the response to things like that. And they said, okay, the first case scenario, fake news, information dissemination can lead to violence, can lead to agitation, can lead to strife. And the violence sometimes too can be compounded by the way the state reacts to the situation on ground. So the question is, how are we reacting to it? And some of the solutions they posited is that, at first, you as an individual, do you have the prerequisite numbers on your phone to call the authorities when you see anything untoward? The DSS has been running campaigns about different numbers to be able to share intelligence. I think you should be able to pick up those numbers or check online. Get those numbers on your phone, emergency numbers, in case when you see anything untoward, you can report to the security authorities. Also, look at your phone and earmark some emergency contacts. In place of an emergency, if there's a breakdown of law or order, who do you call? That's a very important question we don't ask ourselves. So do you have the police station number? Do you have the firefighters number? Do you have all those, social response team numbers that is also needed? Also, that's another place people talk about, embassies, places you can run to for shield and things like that. Do you have numbers and do you have contacts across board? And most importantly, follow the trend, follow the news, follow the story, and also be abreast with things that are happening as regards, insecurity. And it was a very robust presentation by, Town Talk and Amarante yesterday. So, and just to segue into this conversation, these are things that are happening in society that we should look at. We shouldn't always wait for the Americans to report things before we get agitated. Also, the DSS is releasing reports out there. Check through their reports, check through their alerts, and every every person in the value chain as regards security in this country should synergize, because the problem is we lack synergy. Look at the last attacks. The DSS had picked it up that a prison was going to be attacked in Abuja, and nothing was done about it. So there's a failure of synergy amongst agencies. Interagency relation is key. I'm happy the police has announced simulation drill. It can also get better. But also in those simulation drills, we should also incorporate the population in those simulation drills. Take, for instance, when there's an attack, how many people in the Nigerian population know how to do mouth-to-mouth resuscitation? Somebody might have been gassed down now by a gas attack or something. How many people know how to do mouth-to-mouth resuscitation? How many Nigerian population even know how to do your normal CPR or first aid skills and things like that? Or even things as little as an Heimlich maneuver. You and your friends, you're out eating, you have an emergency, bone is stuck in your throat. Can you do an Heimlich maneuver? I mean, these are things we should ask ourselves, because we all must come together as regards the security of this country. But good one on the police, good one on all the authorities. We must work together evermore. That's all on this airline. I will take a short break now. When we return, we'll have Michael Wilson and Road Studio to give us updates on global African business activity. Stay with us.
I've been running my business on my own, trying my best to get into the next level, but I really need some help to get ahead. I know just what to do, I'll vault it for my loans, overdraft, step by step to my dream business we vault. Vault is the answer. Salary earners, entrepreneurs, get your loans with no collateral. Hey. Vault is the answer. Quick sign up, zero paperwork, step by step to your dream business with Vault by Polaris Bank.
Vault is available to individuals, SMEs, and corporate customers. Download Vault by Polaris Bank from the Google Play Store or Apple App Store to get started today.
Vault is the answer.
Where is Glory?
Excuse me, ma'am.
Hello? Where Glow now?
Are they here?
Glow, don't go village. Tell all our customer abi.
Everybody pay attention. See, now Glow berekete 10x. Now him I they take tension my customers. Now they dash me 10 times the credits when I load. Or even sama me double data join.
Yeah. Wait, so with 1.5 when they give on the boss, so you they enjoy up to
15,000 naira credit and data. And I say I never finish you. See, when I say if we enjoy, if we not join Glow berekete 10x, when I go get 1,000 naira welcome credit. You just carry your phone, dial *777# finish.
Glow, you don't win. Una see they here. Hello, please, I'm looking for Glow. Please save now Glow with they fine. Now Glow with they go. Okay, so
enjoy 10 times the value of your recharge on Glow Berekete 10X. You also get 1,000 naira for calls and data and double data bonus on your subscription.
No country can claim to be independent without a level of technological independence. Zynox is a world-class Nigerian integrated ICT solutions company that has delivered ICT projects on the African continent and has certified capacity to do more. That's why Zynox is at the forefront of bringing advanced technologies such as virtual reality, big data, robotics, artificial intelligence, and making them accessible to every Nigerian. Today, we continue to propel Nigeria into the digital future. Multiple solutions at a time. Zynox Technologies. Anticipate the future.
Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. For Global Business Update, Michael Wilson joins us now from London. Good morning, Michael.
Morning. A very, very volatile day as far as Asia Pacific stocks are concerned. Hong Kong stocks very volatile indeed. Mainland China markets continued to slide. The Hang Seng, though, has recovered very, very slightly, up almost 1%. But the problem was it was Chinese tech stocks in the United States and the Hang Seng index, they dropped sharply, basically because and also the China Shanghai Composite reversed its direction. It fell an enormous amount. It's now up about 0.75%. The reason for all this volatility, I think, is due to investor worries about where China's actually going, given the end of the Communist Conference over the weekend, and the fact that no great ideas about the economy were given there. There are plenty of ideas about political cadres and all the rest of it, but not about the economy. And however, it should be said that the drop in things like Alibaba and so on may have been slightly exaggerated. That's what analysts are thinking right now. It's a very, very confused picture. So first of all, you had this big drop after the China conference, and now analysts are saying actually you shouldn't be too worried because the next premier, who's called Li Qiang, not the next president, but the next premier, oversaw stringent lockdowns in Shanghai and also managed to navigate through that. The problem, once again, I would draw your attention to the fact that everything disregards what's going on in the property sector right now. And again, Evergrande comes into the headlines now and again. Some home buyers have refused to pay their mortgages. So this is all continuing. So once healthy developers are struggling to repay their debt, and shares of Chinese companies, as I said to you, listed in the US dropped very, very sharply indeed after Beijing tightened President Xi's grip on the economy. So a very mixed picture. It's really what we need from China is some clear signals about where they're going with regulation and the rest of it. US markets await the big tech earnings today. Stock futures actually looked ahead to technology earnings, and from those we'll get some kind of clues about the US economy. Shares of Amazon slipped very, very slightly, but we're going to get Alphabet and Microsoft today. Meta Platforms reports on tomorrow, and followed by Amazon and Apple on Thursday. And I don't need to tell you, do I, that given their sheer size and market capitalization, any kind of move of those markets, those companies, has an enormous effect on the rest of the markets and indeed on investor sentiment worldwide. Let's turn our attention to France in the EU, and it's entering the white gold rush. This is a company called Imerys, and what they're doing is they are supplying Europe with lithium. Lithium is essential for the emerging electric car market, and I'm sure I don't need to tell you that, and it's for batteries as well. The EU plans to stop the sale of new diesel and gasoline cars from 2035. So to the UK, and Rishi Sunak is the new Prime Minister. That was given fairly quickly yesterday, succeeding Liz Truss, who resigned on Thursday. All Rishi Sunak now has to go is to go and meet the King, King Charles III, and then it'll all be sorted out then. That's the ritual which dictates that. He'll be the first country's Prime Minister of colour, and he won the role after Penny Mordaunt bowed out yesterday. He is credited with having steered the UK economy through the height of the COVID-19 pandemic and broadly seen as a relatively safe pair of fiscal hands. The sterling has neither moved one way or the other. It's just going steadily, but in 30 basis points in terms of long-term drop in the cost of government borrowing. A leading city boss, this chap Guy Hands, who runs a private equity fund, is saying that the UK is doomed, as he puts it, without a Brexit rethink, and is destined to become the sick man of Europe. A lot of people are saying, yeah, well, thanks for that. What we actually, that's all water under the bridge now, if I can put it like that. Brexit's been done and decided, and therefore the country itself will have to move forward. But anyway, I quote it to you because he's a a foremost business person within the UK. UK cost of living latest, the price of pasta, tea, chips, cooking oil, basically these are all basics. They've soared by, and vegetable oils up 65% on the year. Price of budget food items rose 17% as it comes, and inflation is an all-time high. There is relatively good news about gas prices across Europe. Now, we were very worried about those because of Russia deciding not to. Apparently, there are a wave of LNG tankers which are overwhelming Europe because they simply don't have the storage space. But they are anchored around the Iberian Peninsula. One's anchored in the Suez Canal. Some are anchored off northwest Europe. Some are in the Mediterranean as well. And this wave of tankers actually is waiting until they can actually find the space to offload this and bring it abroad. The EU gas prices have slumped to about $100 per megawatt hour. That's down from 400. It seems a lot, but actually, if you look back and see where it was about before all the Ukraine-Russia stuff started, it was about 40 euros per megawatt hour. And finally, oil as a commodity, crude prices remaining fairly volatile. We got some fairly weak PMIs yesterday. China's COVID woes have not gone away. We look for clarity as far as China's concerned, and we're not exactly sure about what's going on in the United States. So for all those reasons, crude prices are remaining relatively volatile. That's the global view.
Right, real quickly, Michael. You know, the city banker that said UK needs to have a rethink on Brexit, is it not right? Because all the lies they lied to the British people about economic prosperity when Brexit happened. You remember Singapore on Thames? And the other lies about the UK being an economic hub, it's all a lie now. And this crisis has aggravated everything. Is that not the beginning of the UK's problem? Leaving the Eurozone, not being able to trade effectively, then its small size has shown as an island nation that it can't compete. That's one. Secondly, Rishi is coming in amidst many problems. Rishi will have to raise taxes like Lord Mervyn King was saying yesterday. How will he sell it to the people that already have austerity breathing down their neck? Secondly, we are waiting for his Halloween day, probably disaster or redemption when they release the fiscal papers. Thirdly, how is he going to marshal through the windfall tax issue that he supported? He said, let's leave the money for these people that made a lot of money. So these are all interesting times for the UK.
Brexit, first of all, I quoted Guy Hans because, I mean, he is a leading businessman. I don't think he's right. I don't think the markets think he's right either. I don't think we should be revisiting Brexit, because if what that means joining the European Union again, then that would come at a considerable kind of cost, and that would take an enormous amount of selling. Basically, people are fed up with elections and they're fed up with plebiscites and all the rest of it. So I don't think that's a goer. I don't think there are lies being told. That's a fairly strong word for you to use, actually, lies. If you actually look at other countries within the EU. Look at Italy, for example. Look at France. Look at Germany. Look at Spain. Are those economies doing actually any better? And would one really want to be linked by them? Do we really think that they are? I mean, these are questions. I don't necessarily know what the answers are. But do you really want to be linked with weakening economies and weakening demand when you could be actually looking elsewhere? I think Brexit, such as it is done and dusted now. And I feel as though we ought to be moving forward. And I think most people actually think that. But you're absolutely right. A very, very hard sell to increase taxes and do all the things that Rishi Sunak actually said during his campaign that he wanted to do. But I think that having seen, I don't think there's any doubt about the fact that we need growth and we need a growth in productivity. All economies do. I don't think there's any question about that. It's a question of when you actually do it. And I think what he's saying is we're going to dampen down on inflation first of all, and then worry about lowering taxes when all that's actually compete. So I don't think necessarily he's going to be, I mean, I think that's what his message is going to be. And I think the fact that he will portray himself as a safe pair of hands. Yes, about Halloween, I mean, this terrible American import that we all suffer from, something else to spend the money for the kids on and all the rest of it. But the headlines write themselves, don't they? Will it be a horror show? And it will be a budget, won't it? Fiscal event, forget fiscal events. It is a budget. There's no question about that. And it will be absolutely vital. And we'll be talking about that when it happens. But until then, he's got a few days to build a new cabinet, and B, give us some idea of what he plans to do with the economy. But he is being seen as a pair of safe fiscal hands, at least fiscal as in taxes hands, and also we're entering a period of financial orthodoxy. Whether or not you think that's a good idea or not depends where you come from.
Okay, the interesting thing I find about a statement by Guy Hans, the CEO of Terra Pharma, is that the UK may find itself very soon going to the IMF for help. And it was in that context.
No. Listen, let's get Guy Hans in proportion. You only go to the IMF if you have severe currency problems and you cannot compete on the global markets. And the global markets fear absolutely, completely about your liquidity. The likes of Sri Lanka lead to that. The UK will not be going to the IMF for help because it hasn't reached that stage yet. I can see why the headlines came from for Guy Hans and Terra Firma and all the rest of it, but I think we've dealt with that. The Brexit thing has actually happened. He's in the headlines. I quoted him because he's in the headlines. I don't think the majority of people believe it. And from what people have been saying earlier on the radio this morning, talking businessmen and women are saying no. We need to deal with things now. We know about the volatility. All we want is to have some kind of firm idea of where we're going. No, the IMF and all that stuff is a sideshow.
Okay. Well, it's good to be optimistic, but that was Guy Hans just expressing his own view. But I wanted to ask you, yes, now that Rishi Sunak, a fiscal conservative, is in there, what kind of cabinet do you think we should be expecting? Would we have people like Dominic Raab, coming in? Are we going to have Jeremy Hunt keeping his job now that he's already giving advice to the new prime minister and telling him to go ahead with interest cutting and all of that before the Bank of England meeting on November 3rd? But what kind of team are we likely to see?
Unfortunately, I think we're going to see a team which is dragged from people who've actually been there before. We're looking at safe pairs of hands now. It's like bringing on, we've tried the adventurous football team. That's not worked. Now we need the experienced players to come back. And so that's what I think is going to happen. What he does with Penny Mordaunt, I think, is going to be very interesting indeed, because she looks like she's been quite an accomplished leader of the House in the short time she's been there. Again, as far as the economy is concerned, he has got to work hand in hand with Jeremy Hunt, and yet his authority and his experience will probably overshadow that. So I would imagine that what we're going to see is numbers 10 and 11 Downing Street in lockstep with each other. Now, whether you think that's a good idea or not depends on where you come from in terms of your experience of democracies and the rest of it. But I think that's what we're going to see. I don't think there'll be much. He'll be getting together a cabinet and saying, look, this is what we need to go for. Are we all in agreement with this? We have to be in agreement with this. He's looking to heal the rift. And there's certainly rifts because people have been pulled one way or another. They've been through a number of leadership endorsements. They've been through 3 leadership elections. They've been through a general election. Of course, people are going to be thinking in different kind of ways. It takes a strong pair of hands to pull all these talents together and say, we're going to be a government, a cabinet of talents. And that's really all you can do. I mean, this is a problem that exists in every democracy, doesn't it? That you bring people together and you say to them, right, this is where we're going. It's the same with a board meeting, isn't it? The CEO should be saying to the rest of the people around the table, this is where we're going. How are we going to get there? Any dissenters, the door's that way.
Okay, thank you very much, Michael. We'll take a short break now, and when we return, we'll be talking to Kola Ologbondiyan, spokesperson for the Atiku Abubakar presidential campaign, and Okpoluwaga Thomas, member of the All Progressives Congress Presidential Council. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
As you adjust to the new realities for operating your business and engaging with your customers, let us help you transform your business into a digital powerhouse capable of adapting and taking advantage of today's opportunities. With our best-in-class array of digital solutions, you can conduct your business, receive payments from your customers, and perform transactions quickly, safely, and conveniently, because we've got you covered with the right people, technology, and service offerings. Contact us today and let us take your business to its zenith. Zenith Bank, in your best interest.
Good afternoon, sir. Please, I need a room to rent in your house.
Okay, where do you work?
I'm a nurse.
That means you won't owe me rent. Congratulations, young lady. You have yourself a house.
Oh, thank you so much, sir. So, how much is the rent?
90,000 naira. Oh, but wait, where are you from?
I am from Akamata.
Akamata what? Akamata in my house? If you know how you got into my house, please get out right away. My spirit and that of Akamata people don't have anything to do together.
Sir, what have I done?
Your people from Akamata are known for bad things. That is what they represent, and you can't live in my house. Just get out right away.
What's going on?